All right, that's it. The auto industry can pack up and go home now. This is the season finale. Hyundai has created a car that is all of the cars. This new Hyundai IONIQ 5N really is a car for everybody. It's an SUV, so everybody loves an SUV. Everyone wants an SUV. It's slightly higher off the ground, so you can go off-road. You can get in and out of it pretty easily, and it's got a decent-sized boot. It's electric, so it's going to suit all those tree huggers that think that EVs are actually very eco-friendly. But also, it's a performance car. It can go on the track. It's got big brakes. It's got different drive modes. It does 0 to 100 in 3.5 seconds, which is probably quicker than it takes you to open a packet of Tim Tams. And it's got all this sort of driving focused elements that you want. It's also got the latest technology, 800-volt charging system, so it charges really quickly. And it looks awesome. It's got a body kit, red stripes, proper active aero, like these little flaps in the front, open and shut depending on what it needs. At the moment they're open, so it's letting some air in there. It's just a full-on all-rounder. About the only thing that's missing is a tray on the back. It's not a ute. If they could create a ute version of this, literally that's all they'd need in a showroom. One of these and a ute version, done. So let's get stuck into it. Firstly, the design. It looks awesome. It looks retro. It kind of looks a bit awkward in my opinion, but I can see how it stands out. People look at it and go, wow, that's something different. Definitely got some 80s turbo sort of retro theme to it. But it's got all the bits and pieces that you want. Big wheels, big brakes, full floating discs behind there, red calipers, or orange, the N orange, like on the side skirt. The side skirts, all the aero actually does something. It's not just there for looks. All wind tunnel tested and all that sort of thing. Dual rear spoiler there, so the air goes flying into the top, comes out the bottom. And then these little side vents as well, which are real. And then inside, it is quite similar to the regular IONIQ 5, in that it's very spacious and practical. Lots of storage around, cup holders, and a deep center console tub. And then the N brings in bucket seats and bespoke trimmings for the steering wheel and dash. The driving position isn't perfect for my height. It almost feels like a van in some ways, with the square and slightly tilted steering column. But it doesn't take long to settle in. Twin digital screens run across the dash, offering all of the connectivity and settings you could possibly need. Rear seat accommodation is great as well, with loads of legroom thanks to a completely flat floor. There's also charging ports, and even the rear bench slides on rails so you can move it forward and back. The seat backs also offer adjustable recline, and some climate vents are positioned on the B-pillar. This really is the ideal all-rounder. It can be a family SUV or a sporty, albeit very big, hot hatch. Up at the back, the boot is a bit smaller than the regular model. This offers 480 litres, down from 560 in the regular all-wheel drive model. There is a 12-volt socket on the wall though, and some underfloor storage. Again, it is perfectly fine to accommodate family duties. You won't find any extra storage under the bonnet, like on the regular model. Instead, there's a bunch of hardware for the uprated suspension and brakes and electric motor. For this review, I'm doing it as part of the launch event, but I managed to sneak one away. So it's spread over sort of 3 days, this video. You won't know the difference, just I'll be wearing a different color shirt. But basically, we'll do the driving as a part of the launch event. So we went on a big driving route, very remote location and everything. Was in the wet, so we get to see how it goes in the wet. Then we hit the track, Sydney Motorsport Park, did some action at the track. And then I've also done the full 0 to 100 and quarter-mile tests on our private road. Out on the road, it feels like pretty much a normal EV, aside from some of the details and highlights around here, like this little blue button, the red button here. It does drive like a normal EV. The steering feels pretty conventional, pretty nice. It's got a bit of feedback there. And the suspension it's taut. It's like a sort of warm hatch or hot hatch or mild hot hatch. It's not too rigid, but it's definitely, it can soak up the bumps pretty well. I'm noticing there's a bit of a rattle coming from the tailgate on this example, but it could be some camera gear or something that's left in the back there. You've got good response, obviously, being an electric vehicle, even in the standard modes. So I've still got 448 kilowatts to play with, even in the standard mode. I'll just slow down for a second and show you. So it's at 60 kilometers an hour. Floor it. there's 100 straight away. So it's definitely very quick, but you can make it even quicker again. So you've got this little button here, N Grin Boost. You hit that and you get 10 seconds of overboost, where you get 478 kilowatts. The weird part is you can kind of just keep hitting it. So it's, yeah, I don't see the point. Maybe you just have like a super N or N plus mode that just gives you the 478 kilowatts all the time. I don't see the point in having these little 10-second boosts. It's a bit of a gimmick, but at the same time, it is a bit of fun. I'll just show you what that means. So it's still going there. I'll just hit it again. And yeah, it feels, you get a bit more of a rush, a bit more torque, and a little bit more power. Yeah, it definitely hammers along. We'll go out onto the track tomorrow and give it a proper thrash. But for now, I just want to go through some of these settings that you can play with on the roads. Out of all these modes and settings and things, my favorite is definitely the artificial gearbox. So you put it into the N mode and it will display a little thing here saying D4, so I'm in 4th at the moment, or artificial 4th. And if you put your foot down a bit, it'll change down to 3rd, and it feels exactly like a normal gearbox. Like there's even that rush of push in acceleration in the lower gears, like the higher torque in the lower gears, and there's a bit of a thud in your back as you go up through the gears. It's really amazing. You could easily forget that this doesn't even have a gearbox. It's that seamless. It really is the transition from, you know, being an electric vehicle, being it from a petrol vehicle over to an electric vehicle. Then you can use the paddles to manually shift, and it's got some crackling of the exhaust during the overrun. And it won't actually pick up speed, like it won't. It's very hard to explain, but it's exactly like a normal gearbox. It's the best way I can explain it. Each gear has a speed, and it won't go any faster until you click the next gear. So it just hits the red line, and it won't actually go any faster until you hit the next gear. I'll just show you down here. So I'm in 2nd at the moment. She'll slow it right down. So 1st gear. It hits the red line and then slams 2nd gear and then 3rd, and it just keeps going through exactly like a normal gearbox. It's really amazing. The technology behind this and the engineering must have been an absolute nightmare, and it must have taken a long time to get it perfectly right. When you leave it in the normal D mode, leave it in automatic mode, I mean, if I can figure out how to do that. In this mode here, so you're driving along, and say you just give it a little bit of acceleration and then you kind of back off and it upshifts itself. It even gives you this little discreet thud in the back. Try and get it to do it, but yeah, just then it went into 4th and it just gave me this little thud in the back. You obviously can't feel it on camera. It's just the finer details like that that just make you forget that this does not actually have a gearbox. You think that it does. It fully behaves like it does. But having the option to change the gears, yeah, just makes it so much more interactive, like a conventional car. So if I'm just in normal mode, I'll just hit normal mode. It does have the sound coming through the speakers. But yeah, it's not as fun. Definitely not as fun. And if I turn the sound mode off completely, it's just, I think EVs are pretty boring in terms of traditional driving enthusiast style of car, because there's no sound, and you don't really get that sensation of picking up speed. Whereas with the gearbox added in with that sound, I'm not convinced on that sound. I think you know, you play Gran Turismo and Forza and all that on the console games, they produce some pretty cool sounds. Whereas this, it just sounds really cheap and gimmicky, like a Game Boy from the 1990s or something. It's not a nice sound. I don't know what they were thinking there, but it's better than no sound. Definitely better than no sound, in my opinion. And it'll be interesting tomorrow on the track, because I think it will give you that reference point. So you're coming screaming down the straight. In a normal EV, you just sort of hit the brakes and you don't really have that sensation of, you know, when you should be turning in and all that sort of thing. Whereas having the gearbox or the fake gearbox, you come down into a corner, brum, brum, back down through the gears, then point it in, and then back up through the gears. It's just much more intuitive. In the N mode, the suspension is definitely firmer, much more rigid than the normal modes. I can feel a lot of the finer bumps, which is fine, that's to be expected. And you've got the adjustment to actually tone that down a bit, so you can bump it down to the softer setting, even in the N modes. You just got to go through the custom mode for that. I think having all of these different modes and things makes it a more versatile car, and although it's confusing when you first get in, if you're buying this, you're going to have it for a reasonable amount of time, and you're going to learn all the different functions, and one day you might realize, oh yeah, that's what that button does, and that's what that does. I think that makes it more fun, and it gives it longevity, because if you just buy a normal car that doesn't have any modes, you don't have any sense of versatility or changing the vehicle's character at all. It's just a one-trick pony kind of thing, whereas this, it can do multiple things. And if you leave it in like a high gear, I've got it in third now, and I'll give it some gas, it sort of lags, and it has that traditional lag of a petrol engine. It's amazing that they've engineered that into the coating. It's really cool. It's very much trying to be a petrol vehicle, but it just happens to have a fully electric powertrain. The sound actually changes around depending on where your throttle position is, when you're changing gears. See, sometimes it won't give you the crackle and pop during the overrun because the revs aren't quite high enough. But if you rev it up a little bit more, it does a little bit more. I love the when you upshift a bit early but still have a fair bit of gas, throttle on. I'll just show you. So your second gear, and I'll press on the throttle about a quarter or a bit more, and you upshift a little bit early, and it does exactly what a DSG or dual clutch gearbox does. It sort of has this really extended pop in the exhaust where it's dumping a lot of fuel or whatever it's doing, because you've got a fair bit of throttle pressure on. Yeah, like that was about half throttle, and it's going blah, 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 like a really spitting and coughing. It's really cool. I think they've absolutely nailed the sound settings and the synchronization of it all, but the actual sound that they've selected is completely wrong in my opinion. But yeah, anyway, it still is lots of fun and very interactive to drive. I've got an ignition at the moment. We'll try evolution. Oh, that is actually almost laughable. Yeah, okay. No, that's I don't know, I'll leave it up to you guys, but I'll just give you another. Why is it so mono? It sounds like all crackly and weird. That sounds like a Commodore 64 computer game. If you don't know what a Commodore 64 is, look it up. It's from the 1980s, and it produced some pretty ordinary sounds, but it was pretty good back in the day. Supersonic. Yeah, okay. Very futuristic. Got like a sonic boom between the upshifts instead of the exhaust pop. Very exciting. Yeah, I don't know. These sound modes, they're very sort of a bit gimmicky in my opinion, but having the availability of over-the-air updates, you could potentially update these in the future, and they might even have a some third-party system might even engineer some better sounds in there too. I think the ignition sound is probably the best. If this was my vehicle, that's probably the one I'd use for the track. But if I was on the road, I'd probably just turn it off, to tell you the truth, and then just enjoy the speed without the sound. Unless I was on a nice winding road like this, and I really wanted to use the manual gearbox, then you kind of need that sound as a reference point. Out on the track, I had a bit of a play around with the front to rear torque settings. But unfortunately, unlocking the ability to adjust this means you also lose the N Grin Shift artificial DCT gearbox function. I actually had more fun with the gearbox mode rather than playing around with the front to rear settings. It would be great if you could do both though, and even though by default it switches to 50-50, it is still very tail happy if you want it to be. It's amazing the way it fully hooks up all four wheels and drifts, smoking all four tyres like a Ken Block rally car. There really is nothing else like this in the EV world. Not even a Porsche Taycan comes close to the engagement and raw driving feel of this thing on a track. Absolutely astonishing work by Hyundai. Needless to say, it is the most fun EV on the market, by far. And to think we thrash these around here all day with no issues whatsoever, the cooling and everything involved to keep the systems happy is truly mind-blowing. Let's head out now to the private road and do some acceleration runs. So to engage launch control, it is a bit of a stuff around like with other Hyundai N products. Basically, I've got it in N mode, which means all of the suspension, steering and engine is all in the N maximum potential. Starting with the N pages, which you can preset with this star button. So I've got it preset there, so straight away as soon as I push the star button it takes me to the N pages, and then you go into performance options. You've got your launch control there, and you can select high grip, medium grip or low grip. So if you're on a pretty poor surface, you know, you might go medium grip, and that way the traction system will work out what the best takeoff is. This is a pretty high grip surface, I would say. It's not wet, it's not like it's gravel or anything. So I'll put it in high, and then you go into the battery preconditioning menu, and I've got it on drag racing or drag, and you've also got a track setting, which I think optimizes it for longevity rather than quick bursts. So I'll put it back into drag mode and then hit activate launch control. And then it automatically goes into the what I would call a CVT style of gearbox. You can have manual mode when you push this button here on the left, but sorry, you can have manual mode with when you push this button here on the right, and it will go into D, and then you can click the paddle shifters. But with launch control, you need to be in the what I would call CVT style of mode, and then you can hit activate, and it will actually activate. Otherwise, it just won't activate at all. So I've got the air conditioning off, as I usually do with all of these performance tests. I've got the Vbox on the back window there, all hooked up and ready to go. I've already done all the performance testing, by the way. I'm recording this after I've done the actual testing because I didn't want the battery to get too low. It's saying 50%, but 125 kilometers range, which makes me a bit nervous being able to get back home. But I think it's because I'm doing all of these sprints that the onboard calculator is thinking, well, if you continue driving like that, you'll only get 125 kilometers range. But I'm sure once I get back onto the highway, it'll start sort of leveling out a bit. Anyway, let's give it a go. So that's ready to go. Hit start. Foot on the brake, then hard on the accelerator pedal. Gives you a bit of an exciting start. See what it has done. Looks like 3.6, 3.56. That's actually my best run yet. I've done 3.61, 3.62, but 3.56 is actually the best I've done yet. That, I guess, gives you some idea of the battery longevity. So back in the earlier days of EV technology, the more you ran the vehicle, it definitely got slower and slower. Whereas now this is proving that it doesn't actually matter. I have spoken to a Hyundai engineer in the past, and they said you should get the same performance pretty much down to 5 or 10%. And Porsche is the same with their Taycan as well. So this is just proving that theory, because 3.56 is the fastest one I've done. So I'll have to do that again now and try and get a lower quarter mile time, because I just backed off then at about 150. Okay, now I'll do a run in the manual mode. So I'll hit this and I'll leave it in D, so it goes through the gears still. I think this is a more exciting way of driving. So I won't be able to do launch control. I'll just prove that for you. The launch control, activate, and it switched back to the sort of CVT mode, but I'll hit D1 and we'll see how that, yeah, it keeps swapping back, so it won't actually let me do it. But anyway, I'll put my foot hard on the brake and do a bit of a launch anyway. Actually, that tripped the Vbox there, and it started timing just before I took off. I saw it in the corner of my eye, so I'll try that again. I'm not sure if you can see that on camera, but each gear shift gives you a proper nudge in the back, and it's amazing how in sync it is with the sound. I'm not sure how they've done that, but it fully feels like you're driving a dual clutch gearbox. So that run was a bit slower, 3.97, using the sort of gearbox mode. I'll try one more run with the N Grin Boost button pushed. With the N Grin Boost mode activated, you can't access launch control, so I'll just show you that. So it's in boost mode, boost ready, and it won't start counting until I start moving. Hit activate, and it says, yeah, N launch control conditions not met, not available when the following is active, N Grin Boost. But I'll try a run like I did just before, with in CVT sort of mode. In fact, I don't think you can have it in manual mode with the N E Shift. Yeah, you can't put it in E Shift while you've got the boost mode on. It's a little bit disappointing, but let's see how we go. So hit start. I've got traction on sport because I've been fiddling around with it. I'll turn that back off again. Okay. Smoked up the front wheels pretty good then. It looks like it's done 3.7, so that's a bit quicker. .66. That was with boost mode, but in CVT without launch control. So there's a lot of different modes you can play around with here. I've just found another setting we can try out. So N race, and that gives you, there's so many conditions you've got to meet. So N race, and you can put it into sprint mode, so that gives you a burst, or concentrates on bursts of energy, or you can put it in endurance mode, which gives you longevity on the circuit. So we'll try out sprint mode. Go back to N launch control, high grip, activate. ESC is in sport mode. We'll just leave it in that for this run. Hit go. Let's go. Might put it in D, that might help. Okay, that looks like it's done 3.6 again. We're at 3.56 again. The last mode I'll try out with this sort of real-time testing is the rear-wheel drive mode. Actually, we can try front-wheel drive too. As I said before, it's a bit of a shame that you can't still have the gearbox or the artificial gearbox working while you're playing around with the torque distribution. You have to leave it in this sort of CVT mode. But anyway, we'll give it a go. So ESC is off. Hit start. I'll build up the revs, or whatever you want to call it, on the brakes a little bit, just even though it doesn't really do anything. That's ready to go. That didn't smoke away too much of the power, or as much as I thought anyway. And it's actually done a run in 3.7 seconds by the looks of it. Yeah, 3.71, not bad for rear-wheel drive. I have spoken to an engineer about it though. He said it doesn't go completely rear-wheel drive. If you are drifting and so on, it'll send pretty much 100% to the back, but he said that it can still send, you know, 5% or roughly to the front if it thinks it really needs it. So I think just then maybe it sort of spun the wheel a bit and sent just a little bit to the front just to try and manage it. But when you're drifting on the track and everything, I can confirm it definitely just feels like it's fully rear-wheel drive. In fact, we'll do that again, and I'll leave this little gauge here. It shows you the power distribution. I'll keep my head down a bit. I'll look at the road, but just so you can see that, I won't bother timing it again, but just so you can see the gauge, that's still in 100% rear-wheel drive. So as you can see, it's still sending some power to the front, even though that is apparently maximum rear. We'll try that one more time, and I'll put it in complete front-wheel drive mode just for fun. Okay, hit go on this. I'm in complete front-wheel drive. I'll try and keep that in view for you. So as you could see, not sure if you can see it actually, but there is still power being sent to the rear wheels, even though it says it's in complete front-wheel drive. And it looks like it's done 3.7 again, 3.67. All right, we'll go back to the runs that I did earlier. It had about 65% battery, if that matters, but as we've seen, it doesn't seem to make any difference as the battery is being depleted. You're getting pretty consistent results anyway. you.